શ્રી સ્વામિનારાયણ ભગવાનની જય. નીલકંઠ વર્ણિનું અમુક વિચરણનું આપણે જોયું હતું. એની અંદર એક રાજા, સિદ્ધવલ્લભ રાજા, એમને મહારાજની સેવા કરી હતી નીલકંઠ વર્ણિ રૂપે, અને મહારાજ પણ પ્રસન્ન થયા એમની સેવાથી. પછી ઘણા વર્ષો પછી ગુજરાતની અંદર શ્રીજી મહારાજ ગઢડામાં હતા, અને એ વખતે ભગા દોશી, એક 15 મંથનું બેબી બોય મહારાજ પાસે લાવ્યા આશીર્વાદ લેવા. મહારાજે બાળક ઉપર હાથ મૂકીને વાત કરી કે આ સિદ્ધવલ્લભ રાજા છે. એ લેટર ઓન લાઈફની અંદર એ જે ભગા દોશીના 15 મહિનાનું બાળક, જેને મહારાજે કીધું કે સિદ્ધવલ્લભ રાજા હતા અને અમારી ઘણી સેવા કરી હતી, એ આપણે સત્સંગની અંદર એમને શિવલાલ શેઠ તરીકે ઓળખીએ છીએ. આગળનું જે વિચરણ જે છે આપણે જોઈશું. આગળ વધતા છેલ્લે આપણે જોયું હતું કે મહારાજ જગન્નાથપુરી હતા અને ત્યાં કેટલાક મહિનાઓ સુધી રોકાયા હતા અને બધું. પછી ત્યાંથી નીકળીને નીલકંઠ વર્ણિ માનસપુર આવે છે, અને ત્યાં બગીચાની અંદર પોતે રહે છે. તે વખતે બીજા બાવાઓ પણ બગીચાની અંદર રહેતા હતા. એ વખતે જે ગાર્ડનર છે, હી વોઝ very happy with the darshan of Nilkanth Varni as a child brahmachari. He used to make garlands from the flowers and offer it to Nilkanth, and also fruits from the garden. The gardener talked to the king of that Manaspur, Satradharma, and mentioned Nilkanth's greatness. So the king had a desire to see Nilkanth Varni, and he came to the garden. Nilkanth Varniના દર્શન કર્યા અને ખૂબ શાંતિ એમને થઈ. પછી એમના રાણીને પણ આ વાત કરી, એટલે એમની પણ ઈચ્છા હતી દર્શનની. તો રાજા અને રાણી નીલકંઠ વર્ણિને મળવા ગયા, અને નીલકંઠ વર્ણિ એમને કથા કરે છે. બેઉ જણ બહુ ખુશ થઈ જાય છે. અને નીલકંઠ વર્ણિ મેન્શન્સ કે you should do puja of God every day. So the king wanted a shaligram. So Nilkanth said that you can go to the mahant of those bhavas that are in the garden and they will give you one. So the king went to the mahant, and the mahant got angry and said, go and talk to the boy, he'll give it to you. So Nilkanth sent Jairam Das to the mahant to get a shaligram. And the bhavas tried to kill Jairam Das, so he ran away. Now these bhavas had a large collection of shaligrams in their bag. Because of their behavior, Nilkanth Varni's wish, the shaligrams jumped out and into the Ganki river. Seeing this, the bhavas got angry on Nilkanth and started throwing stones at him. Jairam Das became concerned, and he ran to the king and explained. So the king sent his army, and the army and the kings, they fought, and then the bhavas died. Nilkanth then left that place, and he told Jairam Das to become a sadhu. But Jairam Das was still insisting that his parents want you to come home, so come back with me. Nilkanth said, I have to continue on my journey, and Jairam Das had to go back. But Nilkanth Varni said that if you want to become a sadhu, come to Kathiawad in the future, and then meet me there. Nilkanth continued on his route to Rameshwar towards Venkatedri. Along the way, he had to cross a very dark forest, and there was a demon sleeping there. So Nilkanth approached and kicked him, and the demon woke up. And on seeing Nilkanth, he immediately folded his hands and bowed down. And Nilkanth asked, what are you doing here? How come you are in this position? And the king explained that he was once before the king of a region called Telang. And 2 Brahmins, Jaidev and Mukundev, used to live there. And they were both learned and very powerful. Now Jaidev's daughter was engaged to marry Mukundev's son. But later on, Mukundev's son developed smallpox, and because of this he became blind. So Jaidev cancelled the engagement of his daughter. Mukund Dev didn't like this. So he went to the king and he says, can you pronounce a judgment on this and tell Jaydev to go ahead with the marriage? The king looked in the various scriptures, what do they say in situations like this? And પછી રાજાએ મુકુંદેવને કીધું કે શાસ્ત્રમાં લખ્યું છે કે આવું કંઈક અઘટિત થાય તો સામેવાળા લગ્ન જે છે એ કેન્સલ કરી શકે. હવે મુકુંદભાઈ didn't like that. So he gave a curse to the king. And he said traditions are more important than scriptures. The king said, I can't go against the scriptures. We have to follow what they say. So Mukundev gave a curse and said, you will become a demon within 9 months. Jaydev, on hearing this, gave a boon to the king and said that God will come and redeem you, so don't worry about it. So this demon explained this story. Nilkanth said to him that you will get birth in Kathiawad and get salvation there. So many years later, this demon was born as Rato Bashio of Jetpur and met Maharaj at that time. Continuing on his journey, Maharaj came across a sadhu by the name of Sevakram. And this Sevakram was a learned sadhu in the Srimad Bhagavat, and he was also going to Venkatedri. So Nilkanth joined along. Along the route, Sevakram became ill. He had severe dysentery and became very weak and couldn't travel any further. So in a nearby mango grove, Nilkanth did his seva for 2 months. The sadhu had 1,000 gold coins and he would give 1 or 2 to Nilkanth to go to the village to buy food. Nilkanth would cook the food, serve Sevakram. But Sevakram never once said to Nilkanth, come and eat with me as well. So Nilkanth had to go and beg for alms in the village. Sometimes he would get, sometimes he would have to do a fast. And Nilkanth continued to serve Sevakram until he became so well that he could digest half a kilo of ghee, eat it and digest it, and became very strong. For 2 months Nilkanth served him, and then they continued on their journey to Rameshwar. Sevakram had a luggage weighing about 20 kilograms, which he asked Nilkanth to carry while he just traveled on his own. Nilkanth did this seva, but as time went on, Nilkanth felt that this guy is ungrateful and then left him. And in the Vachanamrita Maharaj mentions that those who are not grateful for what you do, you should consider them a sinner and then just leave them. Nilkanth continued on and celebrated the Kumbh Mela at Kumbhakon, which happens on a 12-year cycle. From there he reached Sri Kshetra. It is at this place that Ramanand Swami was given Diksha by Ramanuj Acharya. Continuing along, Nilkanth reached Devipatan. He rested under a tree near a village. In the village, there was a mother and a family and a child living there. And she kept insisting to her son Bhagwan Das Bhausar to search for God. Bhagwan Das decided to go in search of God, but he asked, how would I recognize him if I see him? The mother said that he will have 16 signs on his feet, 7 on the left and 9 on the right. Secondly, he will not cast a shadow when the sun is out. And at night, if we take a lamp to him, the light will go through his body. So like this, with this knowledge, Bhagwan Das left. He crossed a river, and as he was walking, suddenly he heard his name being shouted. So he was wondering that who's calling me, and he looked around and he saw this young brahmachari sitting under a tree. So Nilkanth called him by name. Bhagwan Das came and Nilkanth lifted his foot and he said, I have a thorn in my foot, can you please take it out? So Bhagwan Das looked at his foot and there was no thorn there. He said, there's nothing here. Then Nilkanth said, maybe it's on the other foot. So Bhagwan Das looked on the other foot and there was no thorn there. But like this, he got to see the 16 signs on Nilkanth's foot and he realized that this is the God that my mother was talking about. At the same time, when the sun was up, he looked, he could see his own shadow. But when Nilkanth was sitting, there was no shadow around him. So that consolidated his belief even further. And he asked, can you come to my house? So Nilkanth Varni and Bhagwan Das reached the village late at night. When they opened the door and the lamp was there, the mother saw that the light passed through Nilkanth Varni and she became overjoyed. Next day, Nilkanth did discourses to them and gave them darshan as Chaturbhuj Narayan. He stayed there for 2 days, and then he said that all of you will pass away shortly. You will be born in Vadnagar at the home of Jumakram Bhausar, and then I will accept your services and fulfill your wishes. Eventually, Nilkanth reached Rameshwar, which is one of the 4 Swayambhu Jyotirlings in India. And here he stayed for 2 months and then continued on to Bhutpuri. On the way, he couldn't get any food or water for 4 days, and on the 5th day he became unconscious. When he woke up, he managed to drag himself to a well, took some water out, had a bath, and he started bathing the shaligram that he used to carry. But the shaligram drank all the water. So Nilkanth Varni poured some more water. Again, the water was drank by the shaligram. Nilkanth Varni thought that since the shaligram is thirsty, it must also be wanting food. At that time, a couple, Shiv and Parvati, came on a bull. They gave some sattva, which Nilkanth offered to the shaligram and then ate. He gave his blessings to Shiv and Parvati, and then they disappeared into the sky, and Nilkanth continued his journey onto Totadri. Totadri is the seat of Ramanuj Acharya. Ramanuj Acharya, the seat that he used to sit on in those days, 1200s, the wooden seat is still preserved there. Nilkanth had the darshan of Vishnu reclining under the hood of Shesh Narayan, which is the murti that is there. At that time, there was a sadhu called Jiyar Swami who was on the gadi of Ramanujacharya. And Jiyar Swami explained to Nilkanth about Ramanuj philosophy. Nilkanth Varni liked this particular philosophy from all the different philosophies that he had heard during his travels at the different ashrams, at the different places. He felt that this is much simpler than the others, and he decided to stay there for a few months. He noticed that the sadhus of this ashram had renounced wealth and addictions, but they had not renounced women. He mentioned this to Jiyar Swami, that in the scriptures it should be like this, it's written like this. Jiyar Swami had no intention of renouncing women, and he got angry at Nilkanth Varni's updesh, and he told his sadhus to drive this boy out of the ashram and get rid of him and things like that. So Nilkanth left, and continuing on his journey, he reached a place called Kanyakumari. There he had the darshan of Lambe and Chote Narayan and stayed quite some time there, and then from there he continued his journey northwards towards Gujarat. En route, there were many different places that Nilkanth visited, cities, had darshan in many different mandirs there, and then continued. Eventually he reached Vadodara in Gujarat. And there was a festival going on, and a crowd of people were there. In the crowd, a person called Amichand, he saw Nilkanth Varni. And seeing this young brahmachari like this, and the aura on Nilkanth Varni's face, he got greatly attracted to Nilkanth Varni. And he felt in his mind that this person is a great person. He asked Nilkanth Varni if he wants any food. Nilkanth Varni said that bring anything that you have. So he took Nilkanth Varni to his house, and he asked his wife. The wife had the darshan of Nilkanth Varni, and she was quite pleased with that darshan. And she had prepared khichdi. So Nilkanth Varni had a little bit of the khichdi, and the rest of it he gave it as prasad to the family. Now the wife after eating this prasad or khichdi, all her worldly desires disappeared. And she mentioned this to her husband Amichand, that she doesn't have any worldly desires anymore. So Nilkanth Varni wished to continue his journey. They asked Nilkanth Varni to stay longer so that he could have darshan and samagam. Nilkanth Varni said that you will serve me in the future. At that time, Amichand said to Nilkanth that what is the guarantee of the future? We could pass away at any time. Nilkanth Varni smiled to Amichand and said, to keep you alive is in my hands. And then he mentioned that you have the murtis of Lakshmi Narayan hidden in your house. Amichand was quite surprised that how does Nilkanth know about this? Because his father, Amichand's father, had these murtis of Lakshmi Narayan put away, hidden inside the house, and nobody knew about it apart from him. And yet Nilkanth Varni is saying this thing that you have this Lakshmi Narayan murtis hidden in your house. And Nilkanth Varni said to Amichand that I will need these murtis in the future. And much later in life, Brahmanand Swami had been given an agna to build a one Shikar Mandir in Vartal. And Brahmanand Swami went, he drew the plans, and he felt that Maharaj is Sarvapari Bhagwan and Supreme. And a one Shikar Mandir doesn't do justice, so he designed a three Shikar Mandir in Vartal. Eventually the mandir was built and it was time for the Pratishta, and the relevant murtis were brought. At that time, these murtis that were at Amichand's house in Vadodara, Lakshmi Narayan murtis, Maharaj had sent some people to bring these murtis, and they arrived in Vartal. And then Maharaj did the Murti Pratishta ceremony, and the murtis of Lakshmi Narayan were installed in the mandir in Vartal. But originally they were at Amichand's house, hidden by his father many years ago. A person called Joban Pagi also lived in Vartal at that time. Now we know about Joban Pagi that he was a criminal and he did vile things in those days. People were very scared of him, and people knew about his nature all the way up to Kolkata in those days as well, and feared him there as well. But seeing Nilkanth, he felt that this person is different, and some feelings stirred within him, and he offered food to Nilkanth. And Joban Pagi said to Nilkanth, please stay here. And Nilkanth Varni said, I can't stay, I have to continue my journey, but in the future, I will return here often and stay here. And from there, Nilkanth Varni continued his journey onwards to Bochasan. Eventually, Nilkanth reached Bochasan village. In Bochasan, there was a family. Kandas was living there with his son Kashidas. And when Nilkanth Varni entered Bochasan village, the people who were out and saw him, they were greatly enticed by Nilkanth Varni's aura and this child brahmachari, such a young age and traveling like this. And soon word spread in the village that some great person has come here. And Kandas found out about this. So he sent his son Kashidas to bring Nilkanth Varni to his house. Nilkanth Varni agreed to go because of Kandas's devotion. Nilkanth Varni saw that Kandas is a very pure person and his wish is very pure. So to fulfill his wish, Nilkanth Varni went to Kandas's house. Kandas's mother asked, Nilkanth asked the mother of Kandas that if he could have a ladu. Now at that time there was some event going on and Brahmins had been called and ladus were going to be fed to them, and some Brahmins were making ladus and things like that. So the mother went to the Brahmins and said that she wants a ladu to give. At that time the Brahmins said that we can't give because they haven't been offered to God yet. So she came back and Nilkanth told that the ladus are not ready. Then Nilkanth said, give me anything that you have. Give me milk and rice. Now, at that time of the day, she was wondering that how would the buffalo give milk at this time of the day? It wasn't the right time. But she had faith in the words of Nilkanth, and she went with a pot to the buffalo. But to her surprise, that as she was approaching the buffalo, she could see the milk was flowing on its own from the udders of the buffalo. And she collected the milk, and with some rice, she gave it lovingly to Nilkanth. Nilkanth ate and decided that then he had to continue further on his journey. The mother of Kandas, Nanibai, she requested Nilkanth to stay in Bochasan, and we will serve you and look after you here. Nilkanth said that I have to continue on my journey, but I will come here many times in the future and stay at your house. And Nilkanth then left, but it was evening time, so there was a Ramji Mandir there, and Nilkanth had the Aarti, did the Aarti of the Mandir, in the Mandir, Ramji Mandir, and he told the priest that these murtis in Ramji Mandir of Ram, Sita and Lakshman, that in the future they will be housed in a magnificent mandir that will be built here. And today if we go to Bochasan and in Madhyakhand, we can see two of the three murtis. They're about that high, small. One of the murtis got damaged and had to be removed, but two of the murtis we can see in the Madhyakhand in Bochasan Mandir. These are the murtis that Maharaj had said to the priest of Ramji Mandir after the evening Aarti, that these murtis will be housed in a magnificent mandir in the future. At that time Maharaj predicted that in Bochasan a big mandir will be built, and later on we know from history that Sastriji Maharaj built the first Akshar Purushottam Mandir in Bochasan and installed the murtis of Akshar and Purushottam. And from that point onwards, our sanstha became known as Bochasan Vasi, meaning of Bochasan, Bochasan Vasi Akshar Purushottam Sanstha. Continuing on, Nilkanth reached a place called Dhanka. Now, there was a person called Lakho, and he was of Koli caste and living there. And he had killed some fish and they were in his bag, basically for food. Nilkanth asked, "What's in your bag?" Lakho said that there's fish in here. Nilkanth became a bit saddened on hearing that ahimsa had been done, and he said that you should not kill even for food like this. Lakho said to Nilkanth that currently there is a severe drought. It is very difficult to get food, and that's why I have to do this. So Nilkanth asked him, "But is everybody killing for food?" Lakho said, "No, everybody is not killing. There are some people who are eating grains, some Brahmins and so on." So then Nilkanth said that if those Brahmins can get grains to eat, why can't you? So with this, Lakho became enlightened and he realized his mistake of killing and begged for forgiveness. Nilkanth gave his blessings and continued on his journey, and he came to a place called Lodhwa. In Lodhwa, a lady who was known as Lakhu Charan lived there. Now she had the capacity to go into samadhi on her own, and she could see and hear things from a distance. She could also see through walls and buildings. And she asked Nilkanth to stay, and Nilkanth stayed there for 3 months. Nilkanth asked her that, who initiated you? Who showed you the path of devotion? How did you get into this type of satsang? And then she narrated the story. She said that she is a disciple of Atmanand Swami. And Atmanand Swami motivated her to continue on the path of devotion. And Atmanand Swami believed in the Advait philosophy, which basically says that God is Nirakar. And Lakhucharan accepted this philosophy of Advait, and that's how she did her spiritual practices. Nilkanth explained to her that this is not right, but she was staunch in the beliefs of Atmanand Swami. Then she digressed in her story. She said that Atmanand Swami once, while traveling in South India, gave Diksha to a person called Ram Sharma and named him Ramanand Swami. Now, Ramanand Swami believed in Sakarupasana, Atmanand Swami as Nirakarupasana. So often these two would have a debate. Ramanand Swami and Atmanand Swami ચર્ચા કરે કે ભગવાન નિરાકાર છે અને ભગવાન સાકાર છે, એ પ્રમાણે ચર્ચા કરે. બટ ઇવેન્ચ્યુઅલી પછી રામાનંદ સ્વામીએ જોયું કે આત્માનંદ સ્વામી માની શકતા નથી, પછી એમને છોડીને અને સાઉથ ઇન્ડિયા છોડીને એ નીકળ્યા અને પછી સાઉથ ઇન્ડિયા આવ્યા ત્યાંથી. પછી એક શ્રીરંગ ક્ષેત્ર, he worshipped શ્રી કૃષ્ણ અને એમની ભક્તિથી કૃષ્ણ ભગવાને એમને દર્શન દીધા સ્વપ્ન અવસ્થાની અંદર. અને એ વખતે રામાનુજ આચાર્યએ પણ સ્વપ્ન અવસ્થાની અંદર એમને વૈષ્ણવી દીક્ષા આપી અને જે પ્રમાણે બધા જે ચિહ્નો જે છે એ એમના શરીર ઉપર મૂક્યા અને આચાર્યની દીક્ષા આપી, દીક્ષા આપી. ત્યાંથી પછી રામાનંદ સ્વામી કાઠિયાવાડ આવ્યા એન્ડ ફરીથી આત્માનંદ સ્વામી સાથે મિલાપ થયો અને ચર્ચા કરી અને આત્માનંદ સ્વામીને કન્વિન્સ કર્યા કે ભગવાન સાકાર છે. After a short time, Atmanand Swami passed away. Ramanand Swami decided to set up an ashram there in Gujarat, and eventually people started following him, listening to his discourses, they liked what he said and so on. And he kept saying that I am the drum beater, the real hero is yet to come. Obviously people couldn't understand what he's saying, but they listened. And Lakhucharan, she became emotionally attached to Atmanand Swami, and it found it difficult to give up this Advait philosophy. Nilkanth discoursed to her at length about Sakar Bhagwan, and eventually she got convinced, and she served Nilkanth for 3 months very well. And Nilkanth, pleased with her devotion, said, ask for a boon, a wish, and I will give it to you. Lakhucharan said to Nilkanth, 3 things I want: my son Viro, my 60 buffaloes, and my fields, they remain immortal. Nilkanth explained, but she still wanted these things. 3 times she wished for this. Nilkanth felt that she does not know what to ask for, and he said to her that I will give you something much more valuable than what you have asked for, and said I will give you Akshardham. Nilkanth continued his journey on to Lodge, and he was meditating under a tree. At that time, Sukhanand Swami came out from the ashram and saw this brahmachari sitting there, and he got attracted to him and went there. And after a short while, Nilkanth opened his eyes and saw Sukhanand Swami there. They had a dialogue, And Sukhananda Swami said, please come to our ashram. Our senior Sant, Muktananda Swami, would like to meet you. We have 50 sadhus living here. And our guru is Ramanand Swami, who is currently touring Kutch. Nilkanth Varni went into the ashram and asked 5 questions to Muktanand Swami. He was very pleased with the answers and decided to stay there and said he wants to meet Ramanand Swami. Muktanand Swami said he will return in 1 or 2 months. Please stay here until then. Nilkanth Varni settled in Gujarat, and that was the golden day of the beginning of the Sampradaya. 7 years, 1 month and 11 days, his journey had finally ended, and he settled in Lodge. During his journey, he inquired about what do people believe in, Sakar belief, have the sadhus renounced women and wealth. He asked about the 5 eternal entities. He looked where there was upasana with his ideal bhakta. All of these things he found in Lodge and decided to settle here. He used to give discourses in the nearby compound of Jivraj Shet. Once Muktananda Swami was doing katha and the gents and ladies were sitting together, and then Nilkanth, seeing this, left. Next day the katha, the same thing, and Nilkanth left. But this time the males and the females all got up and followed Nilkanth. Then Muktananda Swami realized that Nilkanth Varni might be saying that separate assembly should be there. Then whoever was remaining, he told them that from now onwards there will be separate assemblies for male and females. Nilkanth Varni also plugged a hole in the wall between the sadhu's ashram and the next door, where they used to collect embers for lighting the fire. Though Muktananda Swami was like 22, 23 years senior to Nilkanth Varni, he didn't argue as to why Nilkanth Varni was doing this. He was so inspired by Nilkanth Varni's personality, and yet he also realized that this is true and accepted the decisions of this thing. Anandji Bhai Sangadia came to Lodge to have the darshan of Muktananda Swami, and then he went to where Ramanand Swami was doing Vichran. Ramanand Swami inquired what's happening in the ashram, and he mentioned that this brahmachari has come and this and that. Ramanand Swami sent Mayaram Bhatt to give a message to Nilkanth Varni and tell him, if you want to have cup of satsang, cling to the pillar. When Mayaram Bhatt came and told this thing, Nilkanth Varni physically embraced the pillar, but then Mayaram Bhatt explained that basically remain under the Agna of Muktananda Swami. Muktananda Swami's Agna. Nilkanth Varni stayed there, did seva and all sorts of things. 7 months later in Lodge, Nilkanth Varni wrote a letter to Ramanand Swami on the 15th of March 1800. Mayaram Bhatt took the letter. Ramanand Swami touched the letter to his heart. He was overjoyed, and he told Mayaram Bhatt, take this letter to Nilkanth Varni en route. Anybody you meet, tell them to go to Lodge to have the darshan of the Varni. And Lalji Sutar heard this message, but he couldn't accept. So he went to Ramanand Swami. Ramanand Swami said that, I'm telling you to go to Lodge. He's the real person. Eventually, Lalji Sutar went there. 9 months later in Lodge, Gurji Dave sent a message that Ramanand Swami is in Piplana. And on Jet Vad Dasam, Maharaj was given Diksha and named Sahajanand Swami, met Ramanand Swami in Piplana on 19th June 1800, today, Ekadashi, as Yogic Swami just mentioned. Nilkanth Varni stayed with Ramanand Swami during Chaturmas and gave Diksha on 28th October 1800, Prabodhini Ekadashi, and named him Sahajanand Swami and Narayan Muni. 1 year later, Ramanand Swami gave the Gadi to Nilkanth Varni, and in Jetpur on Prabodhini Ekadashi, 16 November 1801, and after a while, Nilkanth Varni at that time also asked for the 2 boons that my Haribhaktas do not suffer from want of food or miseries in life. And 1 month later, Ramanand Swami passed away because of an illness on 17 December 1801. And from that point onwards, Sahajanand Swami, Narayan Muni Swami, as he was also known as, continued with the growth of Satsang and Swaminarayan Fellowship. And today we see the growth of BAPS and Satsang. Shri Swaminarayan Bhagavan Ni Jai.